Hello, welcome everybody. We are going to go ahead and get started on our presentation today on building a time tracking system in SharePoint. Welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining. We'll go ahead and jump in because I want to get to our tools and into SharePoint as quickly as possible. There we go. Okay, so I'm Will Cooper. I'm the training coordinator for Infowise and do quite a lot of other things as well. I'm also a SharePoint consultant. I do a lot of development with various customers, building solutions in SharePoint environments. As for many of you, I've seen a lot of different SharePoint environments, on-premise, SharePoint Online, etc. One cool thing about what I'm showing you today, this is something that'll work in any version of SharePoint for the most part, as long as you're working with SharePoint on-prem 2013 or newer. This could be for on-prem or online. My background is with Microsoft. I've spent most of my career building solutions and doing development using various Microsoft tools. About 10 years ago, I started to focus on SharePoint, and for the most part, that's pretty much exclusively what I focus on today. And then in recent years, I've been working with the Infowise team on Ultimate Forms, and I've come to find this tool set indispensable. And I really love these tools, and that's what I really want to show today. I want to show how these really to help you to build forms and solution and workflow very easily and painlessly, especially compared to alternative approaches. I do want to mention towards the end of the presentation, we are going to go ahead and give away an embroidered polo shirt that is limited to folks inside of the United States just for shipping reasons. So hang around for that, and we'll get a shirt mailed out to somebody today. Just another groundkeeping, we do want to interact with you and answer your questions and help you out. And the way to do that is to use the questions interface in GoToWebinar. You can find that in your control panel. I do have a colleague who's also on. He'll try to help you with the questions and also help as well. And also at the end of the presentation, we'll try to stay around to answer any questions. So use that to interact with us, please. All right, so just to get started, let's talk about some common features, some key features that all of us would like to have in just about any type of time tracking system. First and foremost, we want it to be easy to use. We don't want anything complicated or cumbersome to use, both on the part of employees or managers. We certainly want to incorporate some automation, meaning we want some process and steps to happen for us automatically. As much as we can avoid it, we want to avoid a manual process. We want our system to react and take steps for us. Certainly, we're going to want to have reporting. Ideally, that would be with PDFs. For due diligence, we want to be able to save out those reports, keep them for later reference, etc. We want the system to be centralized. We want to have nice dashboards for our users, and that all kind of plays into ease of use. And in these systems, basically you have two main roles. You've got your regular employees filling out their time report, and then of course you've got admin level users in the system, your managers who may need to do an approval or run reports or something like that. And then with these time reports, since they tend to run on a regular schedule, instead of having our users have to manually create those, we'd really like to have them automatically created. And in the example I'll show, we'd have that happen on a weekly basis. So that's the part that we want. We certainly want email notifications and reminders. And then also we'd like to have a simple approval, after an employee submits that. So that's our plan. Those are the features we want to incorporate, and I'll demonstrate to you how those are accommodated for the tool that I'm going to show. So just some general principles in terms of building this kind of tool in SharePoint, some recommendations and strategy. I like what I refer to as the MVP approach, minimum viable product. What we want is to get a tool and a form up as fast and quickly as possible. And that's something that Ultimate Forms really helps you to do without any code or programming. We want to move quickly and get our basic concept up and running. And we want to kind of avoid complexity. We want to keep things simple, especially coming out of the gate. We like things to be in bite-sized pieces, easy to manage. And I'll show you in the second part of the presentation how things are put together and configured that follows this strategy. We want to do testing with the interface early and often just to make sure things work the way that we expect. To do that, we're going to create some dummy records and things like that. I do want to mention after our presentation today, the solution that you'll see me demonstrate is going to be saved as a template, which you can download and install in your own SharePoint environment for free. This template for now is specifically just for SharePoint Online, but I do want to emphasize that Ultimate Forms capabilities, everything that I'm showing in this presentation works equally in on-premise SharePoint as well. All right, so this is kind of a representation of my feelings about trying to develop a process like this without the tools that I need to build. So Microsoft does, of course, have some capabilities and tools that can be used. Those include Power Automate and Power Apps. However, for those of you who've explored that, I'm sure you will agree with me, those tend to be developer-oriented. There's a steep learning curve, there's complexity, and it tends to be a slow build process, and that's not desirable in terms of the strategy I mentioned. With the tools that I'm showing today, I hope that you'll see that they are designed around ease of use. No programming. What you see is what you get. It's simple drop-down configurations. Every aspect of these tools are designed in a way to let you build in an easy and intuitive way. So that's very important to our strategy. As I mentioned, this is all available and works in the same way, both for Office 365 or for on-premise SharePoint. We're working in a cycle. Basically, when you're building this kind of thing, I mentioned you kind of get your minimum tool set up. You want to make modifications, publish those out, and test. So you're working in this loop where you're going through iterations to incrementally tweak and adjust to get what you want. And one thing I like about this is that we're building according to our own specific needs. I am providing this as a template, but the good news is this is a tool set in which you can manage and configure according to any kind of business requirements that you might have. And that's a much more desirable situation than a canned solution where it may have some nice features, but it really does not give you the ability to change it to match some of your specific requirements. All right, so let's jump into SharePoint. I'm in SharePoint Online. I'm working with modern pages and modern interface. What you see here is just a basic dashboard with some quick link tiles, which is what our user will see. So I'm going to start the presentation by showing you the user experience and some of the features and functionality, and then what I will do is circle back behind and show you how that was configured and set up. All right, so here's our time reports list, and what I want to do is go ahead and just create a new time report. Now what I want you to notice is when I click on this, you're going to see a form that is totally different than what you would ever see in out-of-the-box SharePoint. And this is set up with the form design tool through Ultimate Forms, which I will show you later, which is really easy to use. And in that tool, I can configure the look and feel and the layout for my fields just however I want. So in my timesheet, I want it to automatically default to whoever the current user is. So notice that it auto-filled my name without me actually doing anything. Just for demo purposes, I'm going to put my own name in for manager, but we can certainly do configuration to set that however we want. All right, so this is going to be a weekly timesheet running Sunday through Saturday. So I'm just putting those in. And then we have this time entries field. This is special. This is what you might call like a repeating table. And Infowise, we refer to this as associated items. What's nice is we have a many-to-one relationship. So I have a master list called time reports. And then underneath of that, I have time entries. So I'll go ahead and make some time entries now. So we'll say that on Monday, I did some development and I just typed in my description and just click the little plus button and it just makes a line item entry. So this is actually adding into a second SharePoint list called time entries, but in the user interface, it's all consolidated in one record, which is what we want. Notice also I have an hours total field. It's automatically doing a roll up total for me to get that total hours, because obviously we're going to need to know that for our timesheet. So let me make a couple other entries just to kind of demonstrate the functionality here. So we'll do Tuesday, sales meeting. Whoops, I'm putting the wrong number. Let's say 6 hours. And just hit the plus again. Notice my hours total automatically changes over. Also notice we have some colored icons. That's the Ultimate Forms field. It's called a color choice field. You can match up colors or icons with your choice fields. It just makes the user interface look nicer, more user-friendly. And then we'll say for today, I spent the whole day doing reporting. And just hit the plus button again, and the hours total rolls up again. Okay, so also notice I have a status field, and it's set read-only in the form, and it just says in progress. That's basically our initial state, but we're working through some steps, and it's going to change according to what we do. So naturally, during the week, your employees may be modifying and putting in entries, but it's not submitted. So we want to take advantage of the process and model that into our solution. So you can see it auto-generated a ID for me. So these are time reports, and I set it so that it uses this notation tr dot, and then it just comes up with another number. So I have a kind of a reference point. Notice also there's an indicator column, progress bar that auto-generates for me and fills up. So this is based on a 40-hour work week. Again, just kind of providing a more attractive and user-friendly interface. So as I look on these timesheets, it's really easy for me to see the status on those and how much time is in there, whether the manager is approved. This time entries will expand out like an accordion section. And even from the dashboard, I can see a listing of the time entries without even having to go into the form. So just makes it very convenient in terms of browsing. So when I'm ready, at the end of the week, I can go ahead and submit this information. All the employee has to do is just come in here and tick a box, and then when they save, and in the background, I've got a workflow action, which is listening for that trigger. And notice that the status changed over. Now I'm showing status and submitted. I have an icon next to it, so it's kind of a real obvious indicator. And what's cool about that is that will auto-generate an email notification, which is also tied to these tools. I'm going to show you how that works. As far as printing, I can do that at any time. Ultimate Forms includes a lot of print capabilities. I can get output to Word or Excel or PDF, whatever I want. And you can create print templates for that. You know, at the very end of this process, if I want to save a PDF from that, I can do that. So you can see this is a listing of the timesheet information, including the line entries, and I can just go to the printout. So this is providing some sophisticated print capabilities to SharePoint. All right, so once it's in the submitted state, basically we're going to have an email notification. I'm going to show you that in just a second. Actually, let me pause my screen sharing and see if I can get you an example of what that would look like. 1 second. All right, there it is. Okay, so we have print templates. Notice I have some formatting in there. So as you expect, you want the manager to get notified. So that's exactly what's going on here. So here it says time report 1007 has been submitted. So this is the prompt to the manager to tell them to go in. Notice there's a link in the bottom of the email body. When they click on that, take them just directly right to the form, which is very handy. So they don't have to go click through 7 screens to get there. They can just go directly to the form to make their approval. All right, so let me go back to time reports and do the manager part of the process now. So as I'm wearing my manager hat now. Now, just for my demo, I made myself the manager. I'll explain why I did that. As you expect, you need some security, and we can do some field level security. Just as an example, if I change the manager over, I want to show you something. There's this field in here that says approved time report. Notice it's a read-only state. If I'm not the manager, I can't do that step. So you can configure the form so that it works differently depending on the user role. But notice if I change this back to me, I have that function. Now, in your system, the way that you would have this is you make it read-only. I just have it set up this way for the demo. Just saying the user can't get around that. So once I check the approved time report box, we do have a special signature field that you can use. And what this does is it ties to the rest of the form, and it's just a simple way to sign off and record that information. So this is all the manager would have to do. They just say, yeah, I want to approve the time report and check to sign. And once they save, that really in our simple example will be kind of the end of the process. All right, so notice the status updated again. Also notice this manager signature field. So just to demonstrate what that is, it actually captures the name of the person who did the signature and a date timestamp. So a nice confirmation at the tail end of the process. All right, and another thing that we want to be able to do is be able to run monthly reports, that type of thing. So these are individual weekly timesheets, but it could be that you want to do some kind of special report on a category or over the course of the month or some things like that. If I go to the time entries list, I can do that type of report. So in this case, we can do what's called a list print template. And if I go in here, it'll even give me filter controls. So if I wanted to, for example, just see the time reports from, say, yesterday to today, I can set filters on that. So I just click the little filter button, and I just say date greater than or equals to 6/17, and then I'll just apply that. And you can see it'll kind of real time, I can adjust this print tempo. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of print templates and being able to get the kind of reporting you want. And then on my dashboard, I also provided links. As you'd expect, if you have a lot of employees filling out time reports, you have many weeks, ultimately you have a lot of reports. So I use the SharePoint Quick Links web part for modern pages, so I made some tiles so I can quickly get to the reports or libraries or just see ones that have been approved. So that those filter views can kind of help you out and make things a little bit easier. Okay, so now you kind of seen the functionality, which is nice. What I find most exciting though is to show you how easy it was to set all of this up. So I'm going to go into the Ultimate Forms app settings screen. And again, this is the same capabilities whether you're online or on-premise. This is the toolbox. This is your dashboard where you do all the settings. What's really great about this is you don't have to go into any extra tool set. You don't need to install anything extra on your computer. It's tied directly to SharePoint. I just made one mouse click and here I am, and I can configure and update these settings. So the first thing you do in any kind of solution is the form setup. This is our form builder tool. It's gone through awesome improvements over the course of last year. It's very fluid and flexible. Basically, you can just drag and drop fields onto the form, and what you can do is configure the styling and rules and permissions and validation for every one of these sections. It's based on principle of containers, much the same way that forms used to be built with code, with HTML tables, but in this case, you don't have to do any code, none whatsoever. You can just come in here and as you notice, I put a title on the top and I added some styling. So to get that background color, I just went to this color picker control. To get a border, I just picked black and said solid 1 pixel. Just really simple stuff. And when I do that, it updates real time. So if I change this over to this color because I want to change that, you can see that I have this preview mode and I can see exactly what I'm doing immediately as I do it. So it's very easy to know that I'm on the right track. And then I can also set up rules. If you remember, I had some rules around approving the time report. So in that case, there's no approval of the time report on new because it has to be submitted first. So I just hide it in that case. And it's really simple. I just say hidden on the new form. That's the entire rule right there. Then I just make another rule. I say if it's not the manager, so I did a condition when the manager is not the current user, and the status not basically make that read only. If you are the manager, then you're able to access the field. So you can set up rules like this to make the form act differently, both based on a status or based on the user role, really according to whatever you want. So that's kind of a quick preview. If you're curious and interested about Form Designer, we have a recording. Our last webinar, which is on our site, was all focused on form design, and there's awesome things you can do with Form Designer. So if you have more questions or interest in learning about the Form Designer, I hope that you'll check that out. Let's talk about, I don't want to say that. Let's talk about some of the workflow functionality, because certainly that's very important and that's something you're going to need to set up. So workflow can be really nasty. And old SharePoint used to use SharePoint Designer, and that was certainly a developer process. And even in that, it was very complex and frustrating, not a lot of fun to deal with. We now have Power Automate, which has some exciting capabilities, and it's something we can take advantage of. In comparison, what I'm showing you is very fast and simple and baked right into the SharePoint interface. So in terms of setting up automation, this is by leaps and bounds easier than any other way that I've ever seen to do workflow related to SharePoint. And the way this works, you set up a profile, and really any types of things that might otherwise have to be done manually in SharePoint, you can automate. So there's certain things that I need to set up. In the system I created, I really only just needed a handful of rules. So just as an example, When the user checked the box to submit, I wanted to do an update. So I have a condition here, a listener, if you will. So it says when the submit time report changes to yes, I want to flip it back to no. It's just a trigger, and I want to update the status. So that's how the status changed. And that's all I had to do is just go into these drop-down pickers and pick values. I didn't have to type any code or do anything fancy. It's just a wizard interface. I work my way through these tabs, set it up, save, and as I mentioned earlier, you can just test it out. You know, I just went into the form and checked the box and said, okay, good. It updated the status. Nothing complicated, easy to confirm. Similar type of thing on approval. When the manager checked to approve, I have a trigger for that as well. Now, with timesheets, I mentioned we want to make them created weekly. And so we have another capability where you can, instead of it being triggered by the user, you can run it on a schedule, kind of a timer job, if you will. So I can create an action and set timer based. In the case of our timesheets, I'm going to want them generated for employees on Sunday night. I just come in here and say, do this weekly on Sunday at 2 a.m. And then I just need to tell it what I want it to do. This is a create list item action, and I just give it the fields that I want in that record when it's created. So this will make a timesheet for myself with my manager set as Vladi. And then the start date will be today. And actually, this should be +6 if I want that to be on Saturday. Today +6, 6 days later. And this will happen automatically. So when you go into SharePoint, those timesheets will automatically be created, and you'll see them first thing on Monday morning when you come into the office. Another thing I want to happen is I want my timesheets to auto-submit if they're not submitted by the employee. This is so we don't run into these things where people just forget to do their timesheet. We have an email related to this that I'll show you as well. So in a similar way, on a weekly basis at Friday at 5 p.m., if the status is in progress, I am going to go ahead and have the system change the submit time report for me because that's it. We can't wait for people to do timesheets the next week. The show must go on. So you can do this automation to avoid the stalled situation. Now, in conjunction with that, very close related are the email alerts. And what SharePoint provides out of the box is very simple, limited, plain vanilla. It doesn't really do a whole lot for you. In contrast, this is on the opposite end of the spectrum. The email alert system has every capability and need that you could ever imagine. I have 3 in here. You already saw one of the notifications that was for requesting approval. We also have one that goes back to the employee once they approve. And we have a reminder here. So this is before the system auto submits for them. So let's take a look at that real quick. So this particular email notification, I wanted to go to the person in the employee field and copy to the manager. So notice it's dynamically picking that up from the form. And I wanted to go out on a particular date. And I wanted to go out before the end date of the timesheet. If you remember, that's at Saturday, midnight. And so I say 9 hours before that, which would be 3 p.m. I want it to go ahead and send this email out. And I made a template for it. So it's called Time Report Deadline Reminder. Here's our template system. These are the content templates. And kind of loud screaming letters I've highlighted. I said, this report's due, and please submit by no later than 5 p.m. So they get an email to warn them and say, hey, if your timesheet's not in, it's going to get submitted for you automatically. So obviously that'll get their attention and kind of light a fire. So that's kind of a nice thing that precedes the system doing that for them. So content templates are really easy. You have this visual editor tool. You can make things look however you want. You can make it giant letters, highlight, however you want to do it, but I don't have to do any coding or programming. you can put together very nice and polished email content templates. So that's where the email notifications are set up. Let's go back to our settings here. I mentioned the color choice fields. Those are fun and easy to use. Status, for example, I just picked some icons. There's 250 different icons you can pick from, or you can even load your own, use whatever you want. I pretty much use those for any choice fields in SharePoint, and just because it's a nice improvement on, just plain text. So one of the simplest and easiest things that you can use in all these tools. We also have the indicator field. That's real easy to use. So I have a total hours. Basically, I just say that I want an indicator, and say I want a progress bar, and it just wants to know what column it's looking at. I just tell it, okay, well, what's the start and end value? So this is for a 40-hour work week. And that's all I had to do to get that cool progress bar that shows up on the dashboard. All right, so I'm kind of running long on time, and I don't want to stall you guys too much. So let me talk about next steps and things like that, because the most important thing to me would be able to see you guys actually use these tools instead of just take my word for it. I'd really love to see this in your hands so you can play around with it and do all this cool stuff for yourself. Okay, so the first step that you want to do no matter what is to go ahead and get a trial software installed, which is free. It's the full software, no limitations at all other than it will time out after 30 days. To do that, you just go to the Infowise site. We've got a nice quick start screen that really kind of tells you the whole steps of evaluating Ultimate Forms to doing the trial installation, stuff like that. I should say that if you want to have a one-on-one web meeting, we're going to be really happy to talk to you. So we can have a conversation. We can talk about whatever pressing needs are on your current project. Just come in here, click request a demo, give us some information. We'll reach out. We'll schedule a meeting with you. Please feel free to do that to get some questions answered about what you need. And then the installation, it's very nicely guided. In fact, it's improved substantially. We've made improvements to the installation package, especially for Office 365. Under 3, if you click download, it'll guide you through that. I will also tell you, if you're having any difficulty or want some assistance on that, if you just send us an email, we can absolutely lend a hand if you're more comfortable to have somebody to help guide you along with that. We do provide loads of information in our tutorial section. We do offer training. In fact, there's a pre-recorded free training, or you can have personalized training led by an instructor. So if you do purchase a product, that's something I encourage you to think about, help you ramp up and get going more quickly and more easily. All right, so let's go ahead and go to our drawing for the shirt, because I did promise you that we would do that, and I'll tell you how that'll work. You may make one guess. You must be in the United States. I'm looking for a number 1 to 100, and I'm going to give you guys 20 seconds to make your guesses, and then I'm going to pick a winner. So go ahead and enter a number into the questions in the chat. One guess only, please. Thank you. I'm going to give it about 10 more seconds. All right, we've got a winner. It is Josh Turan. Josh, if you can send me an email to willc@infowisesolutions.com, that's WILLC, and send me an address, a shirt size, and I'll get that out to you today. Thank you guys for doing that. And that concludes our main presentation. Certainly, we're going to stay on here and answer questions, so stick around if you're waiting for answers to any questions you have in the chat. If you want to do a one-on-one meeting, just go ahead and go into our site and do the request a demo. And Also, as I mentioned, if you want to learn more information about Form Designer, please check out our webinar from May, which focused specifically and almost exclusively on that. It's an awesome tool, and you can see a lot more details about how that works. Thanks very much, everybody, for joining today. I appreciate your attention and interest in this, and I will have both the video of our presentation and the template for the timesheet system uploaded and available in the Infowise site later today. Oh, I will show you real quick how you access that. Sorry, I kind of glossed over that. The way that you can access the template, once you have the software installed, you go into the Install Business Solutions and then click on Infowise Webinars. You can see the one for Form Designer demo from May is there right now. Later today, you'll see the tool that I've demonstrated in this presentation. It'll be there. All right, so we'll stay on chat. I'm going to go on mute and stop screen sharing, but we will keep the meeting open to answer questions.